Today we're honored to have Dr. Deepak Chopra with us. Dr. Chopra has 5 million followers on Facebook. He is a philosopher, he is a visionary, he's a healer, he is a leader, and a big picture thinker. No, make that huge picture thinker. His next book is Brain, Mind, and Cosmos, so I think we're really going out there. He's written 75 books. He's in constant motion, but he is serene and infinitely flexible. I've learned a lot from him. Please welcome Dr. Deepak Chopra.
Thank you, Glenda. Thank you, Joe. So I'm going to be on time. You don't even have to remind me. I'll be right to the second. And because of that, I'm not going to answer questions this morning. But this afternoon, Rudy and I are going to be together, and we have 2 hours, so we'll be answering your questions. And I just want to say this morning was amazing. We learned about the impaired brain, and we're getting to the normal brain, but we want to talk this afternoon about the enlightened brain as well. So I don't know how many of you were here last time I was here in Aspen. Can you raise your hands if you were? January? How many were you? So please excuse me, because after listening to Mick Ebeling, are you here, Mick? He's somewhere in the back. I feel compelled, after having heard him, I feel compelled to share a story. And I also want to say that what he spoke to us about this morning, Mick, is really the template for a new science of consciousness. Because what did he say? Commit to it and then figure it out. And those 2 principles scientifically would be: consciousness is a field of all possibilities, principle number 1. And number 2 principle, intention has infinite organizing power. So just remember those 2 things. And we'll cover that this afternoon in detail. But let me start with a short story, because I said I feel compelled to share stories now. So the story is about 2 years ago, when I was traveling around the country promoting a book on historical fiction called God, A Story of Revelation. And it's about human beings who've had creative insights since the time of the Old Testament right to Einstein and post-Einstein. And that's why I called it A Story of Revelation. How do we get those creative insights? Where is intuition, insight, creativity, imagination, choice? Where does that all come from? How does a neural network do that, for example? So when I landed in Los Angeles, I was picked up by my son and my then 5-year-old grandson. And as we stepped out of the airport, the first question he asked me, he said, "Dada," which is the Indian term for grandfather on the father's side. He said, "What is dark energy?" Interesting question from a 5-year-old, right? So I said, "What do you know about dark energy?" And he said, "It flows through the night sky," which is a beautiful, poetic way of explaining it. I said, "What else do you know about it?" And he said, "It's 70% of the universe." Now, how many of you know that? Okay? So I said, this kid is something else, Then we get out of the airport and we're driving in Santa Monica. I roll down the window and we are looking at the ocean on our right side. I can smell it and see it, and it's a beautiful day. And he looks at me and he says, "How did they make the ocean?" I said, "How did who make the ocean?" He said, "They." I said, No. If you're going to grow up to be a scientist, which is what he wants to do, you have to be precise in your question. Who's they? So he thinks for a moment, and then he says, he reframes the whole question. He says, "How did the ocean get made?" So I said, well, it got made the same way as the Earth. We're a piece of rock that fell off a giant star, and now that's the solar system. Then I threw the question back at him, and I said, do you know how many planets there are in the solar system? He said, well, if you count Pluto, there are 9. But some people don't think Pluto is a real planet, so then there would be 8. So I said, where did the solar system come from? He said, from the galaxy. I said, yeah, do you know the name of the galaxy? He said, Milky Way. I said, yes. I said, where did the galaxy come from? He said, the universe. I said, that's true. And where did the universe come from? And without batting an eyelid, he said, from another dimension. Okay, so that's the gist of my talk today. Okay? But by now, I'm a little confused. You know, how does my 5-year-old know all this stuff? And, you know, because I'm Indian, we think everything recycles, you know. We just, so I'm thinking, who's this kid? Is he Galileo or who is? So I said, how do you know all this? And he said, it's on my Pokemon. Okay. 2 reasons for telling you this story. One, I think it's an interesting story. But also, if you don't know what's happening on Pokemon, then you're not part of the zeitgeist right now. Okay. And the second thing is, what my grandson raised are 2 of the biggest, number 1 and number 2, open questions in science today. Open means they're open. We're looking for the answer. Okay? So the number 1 open question in science today is, what is the universe made of? And the answer is we don't know. Okay? Simple answer. 70% is dark energy, a mysterious force called the cosmological constant. 26% or 25 point something percent is dark matter, which seems to be not atomic because it doesn't reflect light, emit light, absorb light. So we don't know what it is. Okay? That leaves 4% of the universe, which is atomic, made up of atoms. You're made up of atoms. This microphone is made up of atoms. Stars and galaxies are made up of atoms, and so on. And that 4% has mostly hydrogen and helium as interstellar dust, which is invisible. And the other atoms that are part of the interstellar dust are also invisible. So, the universe, the visible universe, which includes hundreds of billions of galaxies and billions and billions and billions of stars, and now we're told trillions of planetary systems. You know, I Googled yesterday how many planets, habitable planets, there might be in our own galaxy. It's 30 billion. Okay, and every week, astronomers at Harvard and Chicago and many other places are discovering a planet a week these days. And if you look at the whole universe, then it's 10 to the power of 30 billion planets in our own universe. And now, of course, they say there are multiverses. But all of that is 0.01% of what's out there, which is atomic. 0.01%. And here's the problem. Atoms are made up of particles. Particles are made up of smaller particles. And smaller particles are made up of even smaller particles. And when you get to the smallest level, which is Planck scale, they disappear. They become waves. And you say, waves where? And you know, scientists, if you ask them, which I do all the time, where are these waves? Because they call them possibility waves. Okay, they call them possibility waves. You ask them, where are they? And they say they're in Hilbert space, which is the name of some guy, you know. So I said, where is Hilbert space? And they say it's mathematical space. You say, where is this mathematical space? And the best answer you can ever get from these guys is shut up and calculate. Okay, so the answer to what's the stuff of the universe is it's a field of possibilities. Wherever, my grandson had it right in another dimension. Okay, because even space and time are structured in that space. Okay? The second question in science, open question in science today, is what is the nature of consciousness, or even more precisely, what is the biological nature of consciousness? So how do we produce thought? Where does thought come from? Where does imagination come from? Where does insight, intention come from? And again, I won't go into the conundrums that arise when we start to ask this question, but this is essentially what is called the mind-brain or the mind-body problem, and this particular problem is called the hard problem. The hard problem because we don't have any idea of where consciousness is produced and how it is produced. We presume that the brain is responsible for producing consciousness, but then if you ask how, then there's no answer. Okay, so if I ask you to imagine a beautiful sunset on the ocean, do it right now. Can you imagine? Oh, well, we're here in Colorado, so imagine a beautiful sunset on the mountain. Can you see a picture? Where's that picture? There's no picture in your brain. There's only electrochemicals. So where's the picture? We don't know. Okay? This is the best answer that scientists can give you is it's in cognitive space. So where is this cognitive space? Answer is we don't know. It's probably in another dimension, and I'll come to that in a moment. But same thing is true of perception. So you look at that word consciousness there. What color is that? Green, yellow, whatever, right? Okay, photons have no color. Photons that are coming to your eyes have no color. They are electromagnetic frequencies. They're invisible. They have no dimensionality, nothing. They come to your retinal space, ultimately. They produce some electrochemistry. An electrical current, otherwise known as action potential, goes to your brain. And in your brain, synapses go on and off. There are electrochemicals, and voila, you see that color. Not only do you see that color, you experience three-dimensional reality in space and time. How? Answer is, we don't know. Where is the experience that you're having happening right now? This room with three-dimensional space in time. Where's that happening right now? We know there's something happening in the brain. It's called a neural correlate, NCC for short, neural correlates of consciousness. But where is this world being experienced? Answer is we don't know. And scientists call it perceptual space. Okay, so we have cognitive space and we have perceptual space where we have experience, but we do not know where that space is, otherwise defined only mathematically. Hilbert space, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so this is, as I said, called the hard problem. And that's that little guy, by the way. Okay? And those are his two sisters. He's half Chinese, so we call him the master race. You know, between China and India, you've got it all. Okay. What is the universe made of? What is the biological basis of consciousness? Science magazine hasn't changed since then. The two most open questions. And there's no scientific explanation for mental or perceptual experience. No scientific explanation of how atoms and molecules build up to a brain producing consciousness. You ate some breakfast this morning. Okay, that's all your body is made up of, those things that you ate this morning. And those things are producing consciousness right now. How? Okay, or are they? So I offer to you an ancient wisdom tradition that says now we're ready to be tested scientifically. We're ready to explore this scientifically. And that wisdom tradition is Vedanta, Kashmir Shaivism. There are lots of these in Eastern wisdom traditions. They say, maybe we are asking the wrong questions. Instead of asking how consciousness is produced by the brain, you should maybe be asking how consciousness expresses itself as the brain. Or you should be, instead of asking how atoms build up to a consciousness, you should be asking yourself, how does consciousness express itself as the universe? And this would be a top-down approach, which would start with where Mick Ebeling started this morning. Okay, anything is possible, because the field of consciousness is infinite possibilities. And this leads to a new paradigm, which I'm not going to discuss in detail right now, because we want to respect everyone's time, and I don't want to be even a minute late. But this afternoon we have 2 hours, so we can go into it. But basically this paradigm says that consciousness is a fundamental property of the universe, and I'm not the only one saying this now. Max Tegmark and David Chalmers and many other people are saying this. We go a little bit beyond what they're saying, but we're saying consciousness, which we experience as sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. That's all you're experiencing right now. You're experiencing sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. We call these qualyas, and these qualyas are culture and species specific, and they express themselves as biological behavior. So all this morning you heard about how behavior is an expression of the brain, and what I'm saying to you is, yes it is, but actually the brain could be an expression of behavior as well, starting in consciousness. So this would be a top-down approach. And that, do we have to take one or the other? No, we can say mind and brain are complementarities. But if they are complementarities, in fact, if you speak to hardcore materialists, they say, you say, what is mind? They say it's what the brain is doing. But if you speak to hardcore consciousness experts, they say the brain is what the mind is doing. Well, in the deeper reality, they might be both the same thing, that interdependently co-arise from the field of possibilities. So given that, I want to share with you now, in very brief time, recent studies that Rudy's been involved with. And these are studies of how, and you've heard a lot about meditation this morning. So meditation practices influence our biology, okay? At a very fundamental level, at a cellular level. And these studies are collaborative, as you see, with Rudy at Massachusetts General Hospital, and Neurology, and Chopra Foundation, Scripps, Mount Sinai, Elizabeth Blackburn, who won the Nobel for telomerase, etc. And basically, this is the list of people. And what we did was we studied brain waves, we studied heart health, and we saw instant changes that we can talk about this afternoon. And most importantly, we looked at cellular biology, and we looked at cell aging, the brain and nervous system, and gene expression networks. And it was a randomized study, and what we saw was in meditation, in 4 days of meditation, the most dramatic thing that we saw was first an increase in the enzyme telomerase in 4 days by 40%. Telomerase is the enzyme that controls the length of telomeres at the end of your chromosomes, and therefore is an indicator of biological age. And we saw, you might say, a reversal of that by 40% in 4 days. But then we looked, and so that's a telomere, and it's controlled by this enzyme. And we then looked at gene expression with Rudy's help and Eric Schott at Mount Sinai, and we looked at regulatory genes and genes that basically enhance homeostasis and genes that enhance inflammation. And we can again go into details of this in the afternoon, but every gene that was examined that helped homeostasis went up in its expression, and every gene that enhanced inflammation went down. And these included genes not only for type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, heart disease. We examined chemokine activity, cytotoxins. You think of anything that could be tested, we did. And some of these enrichments were absolutely remarkable. 17-fold increase in genes that regulate heart health, enrichment. Genes that regulate homeostasis and biological activity, 17 times enrichment, and on and on. And so this is our pilot study that is now being followed by a more interesting study where we are correlating gene expression, telomerase, heart health, brain health with psychological and spiritual and emotional development. And our next study is based on principles of Ayurveda, which include nutrition, examining the microbiome, because you know that the microbiome is 90% of your DNA in your body, including your GI tract and your skin. And perhaps there's crosstalk between your microbial DNA and your human DNA. And so we're going to look at everything that we do in a program called Perfect Health, which is about 6 days at our center. And we're looking at the effect of herbs that are known as adaptogens. We're looking at oils that we help people consume. You heard about Mediterranean diet where there's a lot of olive oil in that, but there are other oils like primrose oil, sesame oil, flaxseed oil. There are phytochemicals derived from plants, so we're looking at all of that, and we're also looking at adding that to our meditation and to our yogic program. So this is going to be a very involved study that is starting actually in 2 weeks, and it involves a lot of people, the same institutions, and measuring biomarkers of aging, inflammation, homeostasis, gene expression, and also the microbiome. This is our conclusion based on our studies, but also on a basic philosophy that says consciousness is holistic, it's sentience, it's self-knowing, it self-regulates, it self-organizes, it is recursive with feedback loops, but it also evolves through correlation, complementarity, and it is creative. And this is the basis of why people like Mick Ebeling can connect to that source and say, okay, figure it out, because we have the intention. The two mysteries, how is intention orchestrated? And the final mystery, how does that create an outcome and a perceptual experience, can be understood, I think, if we use the top-down approach. So this is the top-down approach. Now, because this morning, Rudy played a beautiful song, and then again, I think Dr. Gruber played a song, I thought I couldn't be left out. So I'm going to use the last few minutes that I have, and I do have more than 7 minutes, so I can possibly do 1 or 2 questions. We'll explore this in great detail, by the way, in this afternoon, and also we'll do a meditation. The meditation that increased the telomerase by 40%, we'll do it this afternoon, okay? So we'll do that towards the end of this afternoon. But in 1988, I wrote a book based on my insights through neuroendocrinology. We were looking those days at opiate receptors and serotonin, dopamine, which are buzzwords. Serotonin, we heard about dopamine. These are buzzwords today, but in the 70s, not much was known. So in 1988, I wrote a book about quantum. It was called Quantum Healing. And the book was exploring the idea that the universe exists in consciousness, that biology exists in consciousness. And the book became a national bestseller, got a lot of criticism, but also was very popular. And I got a letter from George Harrison, and he said, I want to write a song about this. So I met him, and I want to share the song with you. Okay, look at the lyrics, because it's everything that I've said summarized in a beautiful song. He talks about the universe at play inside your DNA, how you're 1 billion years old today and more. So here we go. Here's the song. If you can, I hope you can read it, but otherwise, just listen to this.
On the street of villains, take 'em for a ride. You can have the devil as a guide. And crippled by the boundaries, programmed into guilt, till your nervous system starts to tilt. In the room of mirrors, you can see for miles, but everything that's there is in disguise. Every word you've uttered and every thought you've had is all inside your files, the good and the bad. But in the rising sun, you can feel your life begin. Universe at play inside your DNA, and you're a billion years old today. Oh, the rising sun, and the place it's coming from is inside of you, and now your payment's overdue. Oh, the rising sun. Oh, the rising sun. On the avenue of sinners, I have been employed, working there till I was near destroyed. I was almost a statistic inside a doctor's case when I heard the messenger from inner space. He was sending me a signal that for so long I had ignored, but he held on to my umbilical cord. Until a ghost of memory trapped in my body and mind came out of hiding to become alive. And in the rising sun, you can hear your life begin. And it's here and now, nowhere and everywhere. Oh, its atmosphere is rare. Oh, rising sun, and the place that it's coming from is inside of me, and now I feel it constantly. Oh, the rising sun. Oh, the rising sun.
So it was great to have George dedicate the song to Deepak, my first quantum mechanical song. Love George. Bottom line, where's the rising sun? It's in you. Where's the universe? It's in you. Where's your body? It's in you. Where's your mind? It's in you. Where is the you? Well, Hilbert space, cognitive space, perceptual space, it's in your consciousness. So the great spiritual traditions have said, know that one thing by knowing which everything else is known. And that one thing is yourself. And in that one thing, the universe, your body, your mind, your emotions, your personal relationships, your social interactions, and your biology are arising and subsiding eternally. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Do you have time for your question? Let's do one quick question. We've got to stay on schedule. Microphone, where's the microphone? And do we see a hand? We have a hand up? Got to be a million questions. Here we go, right down to the front row. Hang on one
Yes,
second.
sir.
Let's get the microphone. Hang on 1 second. Great.
Very enlightening. It's always brilliant, like I've always heard from you. I'm proud to be here to listen to you. You capsulized what humans and our existence put together in a very simple fashion. How would you correlate physicality, metaphysics, and spirituality?
So,
Just 1 minute.
okay, well, the shortest answer is go to Amazon and pick up Mind, Brain, Cosmos. It has 30 scientists addressing your... I'm the editor. I wrote only one chapter, but it has 30 scientists addressing this. But the briefest answer is mind, brain, and cosmos, of course, mind, brain, body, and cosmos, are one. They are a single field of possibilities that differentiates into these experiences. The mind is a subjective experience in consciousness. Your body is an objective experience in consciousness, and so is the universe, a translation of bodily states in consciousness. See, when we look at the Milky Way galaxy, all that's happening is photons are going to the back of your retina. And that's translating a bodily state into the Milky Way galaxy. So, short answer, it's all consciousness.
Can we evolve our physicality?
Can we evolve our physicality? Yes. The short answer is that's the transhuman, the superhuman, and we'll talk about it this afternoon.
Thank you,